Hello, welcome to my channel. Today we'll be talking about episodes 4 and 5 of Lovecraft Country. I'll put a time card here for if you would like to skip to episode 5, but let's get into it. Spoilers, you guys! Duh. Let's talk about episode 4. This episode was crazy. So it was kind of like reminded me of National Treasure because they have to go to a museum. And we get our trio back of Montrose, Atticus, and Letitia all going on this adventure to the center of the earth to find the Book of Names, or some pages from the Book of Names. The way this episode starts gives us a big insight into Montrose. So as we've seen in the series so far, Montrose is a very angry man. He seems to have some violent tendencies. We've learned from Uncle George, who has passed, that Montrose had a violent relationship with their father, and therefore now Atticus has a violent relationship with his father. And something I have been questioning throughout the show is if Montrose actually cares for Atticus, because as you know, when they come and save him, Montrose is essentially like, I can't believe you come and save me after I sent you a letter asking for help when we haven't talked in, I think it was like 2 years or something like that. To which my response was just like, that's your son. Wouldn't you assume your son cares about you? And if you sent him an alarming letter like that, he'd come running back? Why would you assume he wouldn't? That made me think, like, does he even love him? And as we saw from episode 2, it seemed like Uncle George may have had some type of relationship with Atticus's mother, and I believe Montrose's wife. I believe they did get married. So, you know, there's a little thing. And another thing that was hinted at in episode 4 was Montrose's sexuality. Now, this is something I peeped back on episode 1 when Atticus comes back to Chicago and he's looking for his father, and he goes to the bar, and we see that the bar, I believe he's the bar owner, is in the back alley being, you know, getting a sexual favor done that Atticus kind of walks in on, to which the bar owner is essentially like, no, I haven't seen your father, but as you know, he's often here. You have picked his drunk butt off of my stools multiple times. It was also mentioned again in episode 4. I believe it was the guy who hitched a ride with them. He had commented that, hey, your father's been spending more time with the bar owner, who everyone knows is gay. So kind of insinuating that his father was gay. And we see Atticus really take note of this when they go to the museum, and they're at the museum in the daytime while the museum is open, looking for some hint that Titus has left for where they could find these pages. And Montrose essentially says, I know the security guard, he's gonna let us in tonight. To which Atticus kind of looks at the security guard, recognizes the guy, kind of looks back at his father, and kind of watches his father's interaction with the security guard, because the thought is brewing in his head that his father maybe gay, maybe bisexual, we don't know, but he may like men, right? A lot of things happening with Montrose, and that's just about his sexuality, and I kind of touched briefly on his anger, but we also see that he is probably an alcoholic, and once again, something that was mentioned before, but we really see it in this episode when he is essentially like spiraling out of control. It's when he ends up burning the Sons of Adam book that Uncle George had saved. And Montrose, I think from the beginning, has been hell-bent on protecting his son and his family, and essentially being like, trying to keep his son as far away from this magic stuff as he knows. And so now he read through this book, and then his drunk ass burns it. To which, of course, infuriates Atticus. And now we're starting to see little glimpse of Atticus's short temper and anger. And we've seen him we've seen his intensity, I would say since episode 2 more so. We see him very like high strung when they're stuck, or rather when they're at the mansion, especially from jump, when he's like, you know, going off about these monsters that the other two, Letitia and Uncle George, don't remember. But we don't really see him bursting out in anger unreasonably. However, in episode 4, we're starting to see him be more aggressive over smaller things, to which that you would be kind of like, chill, bro, chill. This arc with Ruby and William. Okay, so we know Ruby's been having it rough. Ruby, she is a strong black woman. She, you know, gets her money. She does what she has to do, and she pushes to get those things that she is not supposed to have as a black woman in this time, aka the job at this, I would say, higher end apparel store. And so we see in this episode she goes to apply, sees a black girl, and then realizes her chance of applying are screwed, so she goes to a bar as we see her singing. And then she gets no applause, to which she's like, essentially like, fuck all y'all. Understandable. And then she goes to the bar, and here we see William. William, why are you here? The initial conversation is essentially Ruby's like, if you're here just for some WAP, I ain't giving it to you because I know you little white boys just kind of come down here for an experience. To which William is like, I'm here to change your life. Now, I had a million questions during this because, one, what is this objective? What are they trying to get at? And I talked to a coworker of mine who mentioned that, you know, Christina can't get into the house. So as we saw at the end of episode 3, Christina came to the house that Letitia bought because there's some astronomy thing that she needs. And we find out in this episode that that thing can help her turn back time for whatever reason she wants to turn back time. So my coworker said William may be getting close to Ruby so that way they can get into the mansion, because I guess it might be kind of like that vampire rule, they have to be invited in, considering they have the protection from the voodoo woman. That's what I was wondering what would happen, but that's not which we will talk about as I go into episode 5. But before I go into episode 5, let's just real quick conclude what was happening with our trio, and then I also want to touch on what happened with Hippolyta. Back to the trio, they have gone through this really convoluted underground booby traps, and yeah, Indiana Jones is what you think of. As they go down through these caves to find the pages, and they find them, but they also find this intersex person who Titus essentially locked up in this like underground ship. Only Atticus is able to talk to her, probably because he has the bloodline, and they essentially help her leave this place that Titus has locked her up in hopes of her helping them translate the pages and just essentially give them more information about the sons of Adam. So they save her, and Montrose comes around. He slits her neck. He kills her. Why? To protect his family. One of the things he's been like on a constant in this episode is like, just leave this alone, Atticus, leave this alone, stop looking into it. And even Letitia kind of confronts Montrose, and he's like, you're gonna let your son run around looking for the information that you already have because of your selfishness. And once again, understandably, he wants him to be safe, but it is selfish, and you are willing to let your son run around looking for information, which may be even more dangerous considering you already have the information. So one of the big things that we see in this episode is the lack of trust between Atticus and Montrose. And Montrose clearly states in this episode that like he loves his son. He really does, and he knows he's made mistakes. Montrose essentially is like acknowledging that I was not the best father for you, but I am still your father and I do care for you at the end of the day. So that's, you know, a little heartwarming and hopefully kind of puts them on the road to start repairing their relationship. And finally, at the very end of episode 4, we see Hippolyta and Dee driving home. And Hippolyta is pissed. We had seen in episode 3 that she was like, I know y'all aren't telling me the truth about my husband, Uncle George's death. And she invited herself on this trip to the museum because she's like, y'all are up to something and I want to know what it is. To which, obviously, if you've watched the episode, after they find the pages, they end up back in Chicago at Letitia's mansion. So on the drive back, Dee is essentially like, how did they get back? To which Hippolyta was like, I don't know, but I'm gonna find out. She is looking for those answers, boy. Oh my God. All right, and now let's talk about this week's episode, episode 5. This episode opens with a white woman, who we quickly find out is Ruby. Ruby has overnight turned into a white woman and is stumbling around the streets, so confused about what is going on with her. And long story short, she gets picked up by the cops and is taken back to William. And we find that William has given her some type of metamorphosis potion to which she can turn into a white woman, but only momentarily, and then she will essentially shed the white skin and be back in her. Well, she never leaves her body. Her body is just encapsulated in this white skin that she'll shed when the potion wears off. It's pretty gross. It's actually very gross. Yeah. So this whole arc with Ruby is focused on some heavy stuff. I love that it's concentrating on a black woman receiving the ability to be white passing and actually to be white and experience life anew. We see that, like, once she's become comfortable, I don't know if comfortable is the right word, but once she is willing to engage with using this potion, the first time, while she knows she's using the potion, she steps out and you see she's a little awkward because she's used to white people essentially making her move to the side and, you know, just for the smallest thing, limit herself for them, and she's not having that experience. So she goes about and has a great day. She walks the street proudly. She goes and gets her ice cream. She sits in a park full of white people, reads the newspaper, eats her ice cream, and she's just having a great time. But while this is happening, you've got the poem for Color Girls playing in the background. I could have cried. This scene was so huge simply because of the fact that she's enjoying her life so much more as a white woman. But why? And she hasn't done anything yet. Like, she hasn't gotten a job because she's white yet. She hasn't, I don't know, gotten with someone because she's white. She has the whiteness. Her being a white woman makes her day to day, just walking down the street, 100 times easier. Like, it just says so much about that impact of being black in this country. We still face so many things in our culture, in American culture, where yes, things could be so much easier if we could put on a suit and just be white. Like, I believe I am white passing, and I believe it does afford me many privileges that my darker skinned friends don't have, and I acknowledge that because I do have it a little easier walking down the street than they do. Moving on. I told you, very heavy stuff in this episode. Going back now to Atticus, Montrose, and Letitia. They are at home, and Atticus essentially is like, where's that person we saved? Where's that person we saved? Where'd they go? To which Montrose is essentially like, they're not here no more. Atticus blows up. Atticus blows up. He starts beating the shit out of his dad. And his dad just takes it. His dad just takes it because he knows he fucked up. Not only does Atticus go into a violent rage where he's beating someone up, he's so like fixated on trying to find the answers because now the only source that they had is gone, because he got rid of the pages too. He got rid of the pages and the intersex person. Both of them destroyed. The little bit of information that Atticus was finally able to get, now he is desperate. But in his desperateness, his short temper and his anger, and he's being violent, and he is scaring Letitia. Letitia has to scream for 2 other people in the hall to come and get Atticus off of his father. Then Atticus goes to Letitia's house and is like, I know you took, like, you had to have taken pictures of the pages. Give me the pictures of the pages. To which Letitia has a whole ass back because she is like, you are acting crazy and you are not about to beat me like you just beat your father. And that just is so much that, like, that you are scaring this girl who you have somewhat of a situationship with. You need to calm down. She understands how important this is to you. She has been with you she has been with you on this search to figure all this out. She is here for you, so you need to calm down and not scare the crap out of her. To which he leaves, takes a chill. I don't know if it's the next day or how much time has passed, but Letitia eventually brings the film to Atticus so that they can develop it and then he can start to decipher it. And during the deciphering of the code, Atticus has this kind of like, I think his ancestor is trying to tell him something. And it gave me the feeling that his ancestor is trying to be like, stop. And like his ancestor is on Montrose's side, which is like, stop digging into this. Because she says something that he cannot hear. And I feel like he can't hear it because he's so hell-bent on figuring out the sons of Adam that he is unable. He has tunnel vision, and so because he has tunnel vision, nothing else is getting through. So his ancestor's trying to tell him something to which he can't hear, and he ends up burning in his dream. I'm sure we'll see what that actually means in the future episodes. But let's go back to Ruby and her situation. Ruby has now successfully gotten a job at the store, and not just as a regular clerk. She is the assistant manager because she is oh so qualified. Mind you, this is all happening as a white woman, because as a black woman, she was probably not even getting her application read. And we see her trying to handle working at the store, pretending to be a white woman while being a black woman, and working with a black woman. This is very interesting because the interactions that she has with the black woman at the store kind of makes you be like, Ruby, did you forget you're black? Because Ruby gets like really antagonistic on this black girl at one point, and then at another point she is just being hard on her. She's not being like evil, but she's being hard on her because she finds out that she didn't have anywhere near the qualifications that Ruby had, but she was still able to get the job. So Ruby's mind is going through a lot. And then on top of that, she's watching her white co-workers acting like the south side of Chicago is some type of circus to go and visit and go look at the exotic people who live there, because isn't it oh so scary? Which is obviously gonna piss off Ruby and honestly any black person, because it's just like, we're people just like you. What do you mean? And the part that really like made me upset is when they do go to the south side and they go to the club. They're looking, that the blonde woman is looking over at the 2 black guys who are talking about all these white people at the table, and they get up and they start dancing, and it's just a good time. And for me, I was just like, it's so easy for them to enter a black space. It is so easy for white people to enter a black space, but it is so hard for black people to enter a white space. This is still true today. Y'all, you don't know how many times I have witnessed a room go silent because a person of color walks in. It's just really frustrating that it's so easy for a black space to be infiltrated by a white person compared to a white space being infiltrated by a black person. Moving on. We see the boss of the store trying to assault the black woman, and Ruby has just shed her white skin, and I think Ruby is contemplating what she really wants to do at this point. Because she essentially has achieved what she wanted to achieve, which was getting a job at the store, being recognized for her qualities. Now what else do you want to do? And Christina essentially hints at, you have absolute freedom right now. You have the freedom to do anything you want. So go and do it. So after Ruby witnesses the boss trying to get touchy-feely with the black girl, she decides she's going to enact some revenge. So the way we see this episode conclude is her essentially seducing the boss as the white woman and essentially committing sodomy with a stiletto. And as she's committing sodomy, she is shedding her white skin. And I believe she said this at the end, like, I wanted you to know that this was done to you by a black nigga bitch, because that's what he called the other black girl. To which it was like hard to watch, but at the same time was like, yes, sis, yes. So yeah, that was gross but great. I mean, but this show, we know it's going to be known for grossness. And one thing I haven't touched on is we kind of return back to the Atticus and Letitia romance that's going on. We haven't, there's always been, like, this show is real great about continuing to keep dropping tiny hints into different storylines that are occurring. So we get a moment between Letitia and Atticus where Letitia's essentially like, what is our relationship? And also like, you scared me and I need you not to do that again. I need you to like get your shit together and calm down. To which Atticus is essentially like, I don't want you to be scared of me. I want to be there for you. And I may be interpreting the scene wrong, but the way it came over to me is that because he loved this girl, Gia, who I think we're going to learn about her next episode. There's something weird going on with that too. But I think whatever happened with his relationship with Gia kind of made him, I won't say afraid to love, but definitely hesitant towards being that connected with someone again. And so I think that's kind of what we see him being a little hesitant to be like, yes, you and me are a thing. But I believe that is how the scene ends, is that establishing that like they're a thing, and he essentially apologizes to her for scaring her and hopes that, you know, she won't be scared of him moving forward. That's my commentary on the last 2 episodes. I will maybe see you guys next week, or I might see you in 2 weeks with the next commentary. We'll see. Oh, another thing happening that will be coming soon. I am almost done with Chloe Ting's new 2-week shred, so keep an eye out for that video. That is all I have for you guys. Make sure you follow me on Instagram at creative_caprice. And that is it. Bye.